Oof. This is quite the epic takedown. Before I come on to that, little question. What is it about Greta Thunberg which sets off a particular type of man? It must really grate on, let's be honest, excruciatingly mediocre men that this 19-year-old woman with autism has achieved far more in her life, in her short life, than any of them have or ever will. And by a large margin, it's not actually a fair comparison because the net impact of Greta Thunberg is a positive, whilst the net impact of those who spend their lives howling about her existence is, I think, pretty safely, securely in the net minus category. Now, what is the crime of Greta Thunberg? What is the crime? It's trying to encourage the human race to take its future survival seriously. That's it. Now, given we face the existential threat of the climate emergency, which is trying to draw everyone's attention to, it's pretty important, I would say, survival. So basically what she's done to anger certain people is to highlight a scientific consensus, which is we should take very seriously a threat to our continued existence as a civilization as we know it, and that we should do it to stop terrible things happening to us, like mass droughts, floods, famine, population displacement, and the small hiccup of many millions of dead people. What a disgrace. Lock her up indeed. Now, enter Andrew Tate, a former kickboxer with a history of making some pretty gruesome comments. If you want to just have a random selection, he said depression isn't real. That's pretty low on the list of how offensive he is. As the New York Times has put it, he said that women who were raped are partially responsible for the attacks, described in detail how he might attack women and criticise people who seek mental health treatment. Now, he's been banned from Facebook, Instagram, YouTube, TikTok and Twitter, but as we all know, Twitter is under new management. Hip hip hooray. And so he has returned. So he sends Greta Thunberg a tweet, and obviously he thinks he's a proper little smart guy. Proper little smart. Little hard fella. He's going to teach this little silly little 19-year-old girl a lesson and show her and show the world just how tough he really is. So he tweets, "Hello at Greta Thunberg. I have 33 cars. My Bugatti has I don't know this car stuff to be honest with you, shows how unmanly I am, has a W16 8-litre quad turbo. My capitalised, he's proud of this, substituting for something, we'll come on to that. My 2 Ferrari 812 Competition, that's Italian, I can't pronounce it, that's my fault to be fair, have 6.5 litres versus 12S. This is just the start. Please provide your email address so I can send a complete list of my car collection and their respective enormous emissions." So Greta hits back, very succinctly. "Yes, please do enlighten me. Email me at smalldickenergy@getalife.com. Absolutely wrecked. Just ruined the guy. Ruined the little fella. He's like, he's marched over. You can see it if it was real life. Like, ooh, look at this. Just oozing testosterone. Proper hard fella. He's going to teach her a lesson. And then just gets absolutely demolished. Now, he's made a bit of a mistake here, I think, swinging for Greta Thunberg, to say the least, because this one tweet with its 8 words and an email address will haunt him forever. That's what happens. The internet doesn't forget, unfortunately. He will always just be, "Oh, do you mean that guy who got wrecked by Greta Thunberg on Twitter?" Like, that's how people will refer to him when he crops up, if they have the misfortune for him to enter they have the misfortune for him to enter their consciousness. That's his lasting imprint on the world. That's his big contribution. Nothing else he ever does will ever eclipse that moment. Being wrecked by Greta Thunberg on Twitter.com. So if you think about it, Thunberg's big achievement is to help millions of people wake up to do something about, stopping our species going down the plug hole. A minor issue. Tate's big achievement is being humiliated by this 19-year-old Swedish woman on Twitter. Who's to say who's made the biggest mark? It is unfortunate. What Greta's obviously doing here is swinging straight for the toxic masculinity which Tate epitomises. You see, women, particularly young women, are used to being targeted, or well, they shouldn't be used to it, so I should maybe rephrase that, but they are systematically targeted by men for speaking out. There are certain types of men who find nothing more provocative and infuriating than a woman with an opinion. By an opinion, I don't mean like bigotry, I don't mean like racism or transphobia. No one gets a pass, whoever they are, for those sorts of views. I mean, having views about the big issues facing the world in which we live, society, their community, whatever. It sets them off. They just find it exceptionally infuriating. How dare that woman? How dare she try to lecture me, etc., etc. That's how they feel, particularly if they're young women who've made a big impact in a way that they haven't. Now, obviously, there's a serious point about taking the climate emergency seriously. Extreme weather from Pakistan to Puerto Rico. Pakistan submerged underwater large swathes of the country, destroying mass amounts of crops, leaving large numbers of people dying, leading to outbreaks of airborne illnesses to Puerto Rico, droughts in Africa, heat waves in Europe, and of course in the UK, hottest ever temperatures this year. Well, far worse is to come, which will mean rising sea levels, some of your favourite cities underwater, I'm afraid, destabilised ecosystems, and devastation caused by floods, droughts, which will lead to mass food shortages, the resulting violence and disorder, which will then result, and there will be people forced to flee their homes in their millions with the resulting global chaos. It's not looking good, I have to say. That's what obviously we're being awoken to. But I do think it's interesting because you can see, I think this is quite an interesting way of just looking at progressives versus reactionaries. Greta Thunberg is a prominent progressive figure. She uses her platform to raise attention to the menace posed to the future existence of humans, whatever their views. It means saving all humans, including people with noxious views like Andrew Tate. So that's what she wants to do. It's like just survival. She's just like, humans should survive. That's her opinion. That's what she's fighting for. I think humanity should continue. And she's using her platform to encourage people to do that, to keep us alive. Andrew Tate just says horrible things. And I think that does sum up so much of the modern right. Their whole existence hasn't been about, it's not about how do we construct this society along these lines, in the way I suppose the neoliberals did in the 1980s. It's just trying to make progressive people angry and upset. Like, oh, are you offended? Like, they're getting to the point where they'll just eat a live kitten on a live stream to go, oh, are you offended now? Does that offend you, me eating a kitten? Bet you're really angry, aren't you? Bet it's really got under your skin. Yeah, I mean, that's what they've become. They've just become kind of caricatured, like, just horrible people. They're just not nice. That's it. There's nothing else really to it. And I just think that's an interesting degeneration of right-wing provocateurs. I mean, if you look back over the years, you did have prominent right-wing thinkers who had something to say. You might not like what they had to say, and they often said horrible and unpleasant things. But it's just like this has become their defining trait, just having a public toxic personality in which they say terrible things about women, about minorities, where they deny things like the threat posed to the human race, even though, the consensus of scientists says otherwise. Yeah, so they're just kind of encouraging us to not take the future existence of our species seriously whilst trying to make life more unpleasant for minorities and women. Whether that's an intention or not, that's the impact of the words which they say. It's unfortunate, isn't it? There you go. Greta Thunberg absolutely destroyed this idiot, this clown, and this is all Andrew Tate will ever be known for. And at the age of 19, Greta Thunberg, I'd say, has a lot more to come in terms of contributions, unlike her detractors. Happy Christmas. Please like, subscribe. I'll see you next time.